demonstrating some of our signature dishes today. I'm going to be showing Maita and my cooks how to make our Gruyere Souffle. So this is a savoury souffle, so it's a bit different. I mean, everybody's heard about sweet souffles, chocolate, vanilla. This is actually a savoury souffle, so it's made a little bit differently in that it's twice baked. So firstly I'm going to demonstrate how to do the basic mix. So here we have our milk, nutmeg, peppercorns and bay leaves. We put this on the stove and then we just bring it up to what we call a scalding point. Okay? When something is scalding, it just means that there's a skin on the top. In the other pan, I'm melting the butter, and this is what we're making what is traditionally called a roux. Okay? So a roux is a butter and flour combination which is used often as a thickening agent for sauces. So in this case, we're using it as the base for the cheese mixture for our Gruyere Souffle. So this is actually a very simple recipe. There's not many ingredients involved, but it's one of those recipes where you really have to follow the steps quite correctly. If you do one part of it wrongly, then there's a big chance that the whole thing will not work out. Okay, so I've melted the butter. Now I add my flour. I whisk those together, and you'll see very quickly it will form a paste. And I'm just whisking it just so to get rid of any of the lumps, and then just to cook out the flour a bit. It's very fast actually, it doesn't take long. You see, now it's starting to bubble up a bit. Once it's bubbled up a bit, then I just take it away from the heat. Now you can see that my milk is almost coming to the scalding point already. And what I'm going to do is just strain the milk directly into the roux. Okay, so now it's reached a nice thick consistency. I have my egg yolks here. So the egg whites, we've separated the egg whites from the egg yolks. And then what we do is we add the egg yolks one by one. We completely allow the first egg yolk to combine before adding the next one. And then this just slowly changes the consistency of the mixture, and it makes it even more silky and light. Now this is my Gruyere cheese, which is Swiss cheese. I find that the Swiss one is a better, nicer quality. So now I combine Gruyere cheese in. You get a bowl, I can transfer it. Turn it back. And then we just make sure that the cheese itself is melting into the mix. Okay, so now the cheese has been melted in. Right, can you bring the egg whites as well? I'm going to now transfer this . Transferring this into another bowl. Again, just check to make sure it's all properly combined. Yes, that's it. Now I'm going to let that cool off a little bit. Okay, so earlier we prepared our ramekins, and we did that by lining them with butter, brushing with butter and some flour. that will help the souffles not stick to the side of the chicken. So this always has to be prepared before we actually start the whole process. And then we just put them to one side, and then we start making the souffle. So now our cheese base, is now cooled off a little bit. Now it's cooled down a bit, I'm going to whisk the egg whites. It's good to have a nice springy whisk. If you're lazy, you can always use the machine as well. But in this case, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way with a bit of elbow grease, like Michael. So we start whisking the egg whites. Actually, for souffles, it's often better to use older egg whites. In France, for example, for their sweet souffles, they sometimes keep the egg whites for over a month. So this allows the proteins in the egg whites to break down. When the proteins in the egg whites are broken down, then they rise very nicely. But it's okay, you can also use fresh ones. It's better to take them directly from the fridge. Whisking cold egg whites is always much easier than trying to whisk warm egg whites. And the important thing with this is not to over whisk the egg whites. I want to get it just to a soft peak like that. I then add some salt. By adding the salt, what I'm doing is stabilizing the egg white. This means that it won't collapse so easily. Okay, so now I take my mix and I add half the egg whites. And I just very liberally mix in the egg white to the batter. Okay, so now we create a water bath, and the water bath will stop the souffle from over baking on the sides. It will allow them to cook more evenly in the oven. Normally I bring the water up to halfway, at least halfway up. Now our oven, we set firstly to 155 degrees for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we then switch it up to 160 for 5 minutes, and then to 165, 175 for the last 5 minutes. So then we'll be able to see them slightly grow. Okay. Collapse down again into the mold, which is okay, and I'm just going to let them cool down. Alright, so as we said, these are twice-baked souffles, Gruyere souffles. So now we're coming to the second stage of the making. So what I normally do is I actually use a dinner knife for this, because what I want to do is gently pull away the souffle from the side of the mold. I don't want to cut into the souffle, and then you'll see that just falls out nice and easily. Okay, put the souffle into the gratin dish, and then we just pour cream around. We put more Gruyere cheese on top, and scatter the Gruyere cheese around on top of the cream, and then in the oven at 180. Ready?
Oh my gosh.
Okay. We serve it with a couple of different salads. One is apple and pecan with crossed lettuce. The other one is mushroom and bacon with mixed lettuce. These two salads we feel complement the souffle because the souffle itself is quite rich. So by having these salads, it lightens it up. So signature dish, a roast and one Rochester, twice baked Gruyere Souffle.